All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our 2025 Women's Fund for the Fox Valley Region Luncheon. I'm so glad to see so many of you in the room, and I know we are all so excited to hear the legendary Catherine Switzer speak later on today, but our focus this morning is going to be on a lot of local ties to women's sports. So I'm so excited to be back moderating this fantastic panel of voices that I hope you might recognize, and if not, get to learn from here this morning. And Julie Johnson, if you're out there, or Julie Keller, excuse me, if you're out there and want to jump in and say anything, you're welcome to interrupt me at any moment. But just gratitude to Julie for joining, for inviting me back this year to moderate this incredible panel. In case you don't know me, I'm Haley Tenpass. I host Focus Fox Valley on WHBY Radio, weekdays from 11 to 1, but not today because I'm here with all of you. And a fun tie-in for myself on this topic of sports and athletics. I graduated from Hortonville High School, and I went on to compete in track and field at UW-Whitewater. One thing we all have in common today is we're all in the track and field, cross country, and running world. So that's kind of a fun little thing we have in common here this morning. But I do want to introduce our incredible panel who is here to talk about some of the inequities we unfortunately are still seeing in women's sports. We know we've come a long way, but we do still have some work to do, and we're going to talk about those things here this morning. So I'll let our panel kind of introduce themselves and share how they are tied more specifically to the Fox Valley and to the world of athletics. And Kelly, lucky you, because you're sitting right there. Well, welcome first, Kelly Ellington, to share a little bit of yourself.
Good morning. Is it working? I'm Kelly Ellington, and I have been a coach of track and cross country for girls and boys since actually 1996. As my last year in college, I helped out with the college team because being in education, my coach knew that I was going to be a coach. So pretty much everywhere that I've went since then, I just start showing up until they hire me. So I've a head coach of boys cross country and a combined team at Fond du Lac. And then currently I'm the assistant girls coach at Neenah and the head girls track coach.
Thank you, Kelly. Kathy, welcome.
Good morning. Thanks to everyone for being here and being interested in this topic. My name is Kathy Solly. I currently work at Johnson Financial Group in Appleton. I grew up in Neenah. I was part of the Neenah cross country and track team from 81 to 84, and went on to run collegiately at Ohio State University and was just recently inducted into their Ohio State Hall of Fame. So that was a big moment in my life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Lydia, representing our current student athletes here in the Fox Valley area.
Hi, I'm Lydia. I am a high school student. I'm a junior, and I have been participating in track and field I did it for 1 year in middle school, and then I did it last year too. Before that, I played softball for a lot of my life, but I figured it was time to try something new. So, yeah.
And Lydia is also part of the Girl Powered Giving Coalition, part of the Women's Fund.
I am. That was a big part I actually just forgot to mention. Yeah, I did that for a few months at the beginning of this year. It was a great opportunity, and I'm really glad I got to do it.
Awesome. Thank you, Lydia. And then Julie Johnson.
Good morning. I'm Julie Johnson. I'm the Marathon Race Director with the Fox Cities Marathon. This will be our 34th year. I'm very excited. I grew up here in Appleton. I was on the Appleton East swim team back in the late 80s. But I started running at the age of 40. As a mom, I wanted something to have as my own. My husband, as I joke, did everything with an ING, fishing, golfing, hunting. And so I wanted my own ING, and I started running. And that brought me to running in the Fox Cities Half Marathon a couple of times, Cellcom, and those things. And as a big event planner, this position came my way, and I love this event. I always have. And I love everything it stands for, and I couldn't wait to start. So I'm very privileged to be the Marathon Race Director.
Wonderful. Let's take a moment and welcome our panelists. Before we dive in too much, I thought it'd be fun to go through a little history of sports here in Wisconsin. I think, raise your hand if you've heard of a little thing called Title IX. Right? Okay, so prior to Title IX, which eventually would require schools to provide equal opportunity in sports, pre-Title IX, before 1972, Wisconsin high schools and colleges often had few, if any, organized athletic opportunities for girls. Most funding, facilities, and coaching resources went towards boys' sports, and the WIAA did not yet sanction girls' sports at the same level as boys' programs. All right, so let's fast forward a little bit. Title IX does come into play. After Title IX, Wisconsin schools began adding girls' sports like basketball, volleyball, track and field, and tennis. The WIAA held its first state basketball tournament for girls in 1976, making and marking a huge step towards visibility. We actually aired the Appleton West game on WHBY, which is a pretty proud connection there. Coached by Mary Beth Nienhaus, by the way. Many schools had to add new teams, uniforms, locker room access, and coaching positions to comply. On a collegiate level, UW-Madison and other UW schools expanded women's athletics in the mid-1970s. The UW women's basketball program played its first official season in 1974, and Title IX funding shifts then really led to the hiring of women's coaches and the growth of varsity-level women's programs in volleyball, hockey, soccer, and more. So we have come a long way. We really have, and it's incredible to see those movements. One's led by Catherine Switzer and those like her. But we're going to talk a little bit about that student athlete experience. And I think we'll start maybe in some of those 1980s years. So I am curious to our panel, who would like to first share a little bit of some of the inequities that you might have experienced as a female athlete. Kathy, you want to go first?
I had to really think. This was a long time ago, but I remember my first pair of running shoes in junior high. I had to buy men's shoes. They were Nikes. I was super stoked to get a pair of Nikes back then. But they didn't have female running shoes at that time. I also recall the news reporting. Oftentimes, even if the girls' teams in high school were performing better than the boys at a state or regional level, we were all often featured on the second or behind the front page. Boys were always talked about first, and I really give my parents a lot of credit because I remember them talking to the news reporters to say, you need to win Nina cross country and track and field when we were winning state. Really encouraged them to report and put us on the front page. Another thing that I recall is that girls, and even recently, have run shorter cross-country distances than boys. When I was in high school, it was like a 2-mile race, and I think boys ran 3-mile. And even into college, that did continue when I was at Ohio State. And then I just have to say, I remember watching the first Olympic women's marathon in 1984. Again, that was the first time the women were allowed to run a marathon in the Olympics, 1984, to watch Joan Benoit Samuelson win. It was pretty cool.
It's amazing. Thank you, Kathy. Kelly, I know you have a coach's perspective, but you shared some things in our little pre-meeting about some of the inequities that you see on a coaching perspective. And then Lydia, we're going to you after this.
I was just doing some counting just for Neenah High School, and we have approximately 22 varsity sports and some clubs that are almost like varsity sports, and there's only 2 female coaches in that whole pool. One of those coaches does both boys and girls swimming, and both of us are in the more lifetime type sports areas. So that's just one of the major ways. I would say we have come a long way with the news reporting. The Neenah News is awesome. And Kathy was modest over here. She has a bunch of state championships from the 80s from Neenah, so definitely should have been on the front page back then. But another thing is our fundraising. We have this wonderful fundraising booster club called Girls Athletics in Neenah. It's GAIN, and it's because all of the boys' sports have their own booster club, but most of the girls' sports do not. It's changing a little bit, and some of the girls' sports do, but not all of us. And in order to get our money, so we have a fantastic component of volunteering, which is wonderful, except the boys don't have to volunteer to get their booster club money. So I would say those are the 2 major ones that jump out.
And Kelly, one thing you had also mentioned in your notes that brought back a memory for me was at practice. You mentioned that the young men were able to go shirtless during practice, and that brought back a memory of the young women who were not allowed to run in just their sports bras on a very hot day. I recall that in the late 2000s. Lydia, is that still a rule for today?
Yeah, so we would have these things in the summer. It's called it's just lifting and then, just running, training to get ready for your season. And in the gym, girls were not allowed to wear volleyball shorts, spandex. Guys could wear cutoffs. I just feel like it was unfair because all these girls would go to practice right after. So I don't really see how that's fair when boys didn't really have many restrictions, but all the girls did when they're just trying to work out. They're just trying to prepare their bodies for the season, and they can't do that without being looked at. Just doesn't make really sense to me.
Now, you and your incredible team with the Girl Powered Giving really brought this topic to the Women's Fund attention. You made this your focus for Girl Powered Giving this year. What were some of the other inequities that you and your fellow Girl Powered Giving teammates had brought up that were concerns of inequity?
A lot of us were concerned about the practice hours. So before the season starts and all their sports can't be outside, we have to share the gym. A lot of the times, boys would get the gyms first, girls would not. So then the girls would have to practice, 8 to 10 at night and then go to school, get ready at 6 in the morning, when the guys always got it after school. There wasn't really a lot of, going back and forth. It was kind of just an all-the-time thing. And I feel like lots of schools now are reaching to, alternate, but still last year it was still a problem, so. And then we also talked about the publicity. So, meaning there was a doubleheader for a boys and girls basketball game. Girls was before the boys. There were not many people there. I was there, and I just didn't really see a lot of people. And as soon as the boys game, so many people just came through the doors, just ready to watch the boys basketball. But nobody wanted to watch the girls. And along with that, when people go to state, you get a state send-off. And I remember talking about, say, hypothetically, girls swim would go to state send-off. There wouldn't be a lot of people there to cheer them on, send them off to state, but the guys would have a lot of people there to congratulate them and send them off to state. And it just wasn't really fair with the publicity.
Thanks, Lydia. Julie, anything that you'd like to add as we're discussing inequities?
I think, as a student in high school in the late 80s, we only knew what we knew. And our practice time was this time. Okay, that's when we show up and practice. And I think over the years, we've made strides towards a change, and there has been, but it's surprising to hear Lydia talk about that. And I think even back when I was raising my children in high school, I'm like, oh yeah, how come the boys had this time and the girls had that time? I just love 5 a.m. strength training, to getting the kids there. So it's just a surprise, even though I think we have made stronger strides towards balancing that out, it's still very evident.
So here, I'll bring this point. Does equal opportunity always mean equal quality of experience? Anyone want to take that one?
I have an example for that one with our absolutely beautiful new high school in Neenah. We have a wonderful weight room that is accessible to all the athletes at school. However, the choice for the sizes of the weights, we had maybe 2 or 3 5-pound weights and maybe 2 to 3, maybe 4 sets of 10 to 25s, and at least 10 to 15 sets of 30, 45, 50, 60, all the way up to 80 pounds. So the weight room was very skewed toward football or sports that can lift more weights, just men in general, boys in general. So that was one of the main things that I noticed at the new school for sure.
Any other thoughts on equal opportunity, meaning equal quality of experience? Okay. Well, we'll move on a little bit. I know we wanted to talk and tie in the professional landscape of sports as well. And I have a couple of examples maybe to get you fired up here a bit. Women's sports receive only 4% of all sports media coverage, according to a USC Purdue study in 2021. The U.S. women's national soccer team, they put some hard work in on this topic. They won equal pay in 2022 after a 6-year legal battle, and still, yet to this day, many women's teams worldwide remain underpaid. WNBA players make an average of $113,000 in 2023, while the NBA average was more than $9 million. That's according to Forbes. So kind of a mixed bag. There's some wins, some still frustrating moments for the panel. You know, what's working perhaps? What's not working? Your thoughts on this? Go ahead, Kathy. Yeah.
Well, I just feel that women have found their voice, and not to say that we didn't in the past, but for example, the soccer team, they fought for 6 years to get equal pay. It's unbelievable, but this is what we have to continue to do. We have to stand up and support one another as female athletes and women in general, and just strive to be on the equal playing field because it's well-deserved.
I also think because we have had the more opportunities that many of our young girls, younger athletes, they don't have any idea. When I was telling some of my athletes I was coming here today, they were like, she's still alive? You know, like that I was just born when some of these things that were happening. So I feel like it's a really amazing thing that they don't even know about a time that they didn't have it. But I feel like it's our responsibility to remind them gently not to take it for granted, and that there are still so many ways where it's okay to use your voice appropriately, to be seen and heard, and get the same thing happens at our high school. The girls wrestling practices at 6 a.m. every day, and the boys go after school. So, and just representation, having more, being brave enough to coach. It's really, really hard for women to coach. I've tried to recruit so many women, but there's so many barriers. So I think another thing would be helping eliminate those barriers so that more women can coach and encourage other women, which encourages more girls and helps us all speak up.
I think that point too, I can certainly relate to the motherhood aspect of it. I myself have wanted to coach or perhaps assistant coach in my current season of life, but I've got 3 little ones, and I find myself battling against that perspective of, gosh, they really need me after school as much as these athletes would, or at 6 a.m. certainly, if that's the time that they would be practicing. So I think motherhood leans into this in a lot of ways as well. I also wanted to mention a kind of a cool win that we've seen on the, I guess, referee level. We've seen women as referees, coaches, broadcasters. I'm curious how you see them changing access to influence and visibility when it comes to women in sports. Does it mean anything when you see a woman on the sidelines reffing a basketball game, or, of course, the first umpire debut we had just earlier this summer in the MLB?
I think we should be applauding. We should be very excited. I mean, what a movement, right? I think we've got notable female athletes who have created change and created a new momentum, and we should be excited. And we should be like, yeah, that's a girl out there, and she's going to tell you that you were wrong. She's going to pull her flag, whatever it is, we should support it. It may not be the right call, but still, we're out there and we're participating, no different than anybody else. And I hope that keeps growing. I think, there is a place for us. There is. It doesn't matter on the sport. There is a place for us.
Julie, I think it might be interesting to hear what you see locally at our Fox Cities Marathon level in regards to participants? What's the percentage that on average you see of women running versus men running?
I think that it's grown. I mean, women are really taking this and owning it. I think that Catherine, our keynote speaker, had a great quote: "Life is about participating, not spectating." And one of the things that the Fox Cities Marathon has always said is you don't have to be a runner. We have a race for every pace. If you're a walker, we have a place for you. Currently, this year, our registration is looking very strong. I'm very excited. The full marathon still is majority men versus women. The half marathon is more women than men. So we go from a 36% in the full to a 60% in the half for women. And for the men, it's 64% right now in the full and 40% for men. But then we talk about our competitive walk, which is a race walking division. We're 74% women. And then our 10K and our 5Ks, it's all women. It's in the high 60s. So women are making a choice. They're also making family choices. We are going to walk this for a reason. And I think that that's great because they are showing their children you can participate. So as we continue, our history, keeps scaling between male and female, but pretty evenly. I just love watching the registrations come in every day, and it's not just from here. We're pulling in people from all over the country. We have 3 different other countries coming. So I think that, when you have a great event and it's a premier event in the Fox Cities, you're drawing a great attendance.
Well said. And I think Beyonce said it. Who run the world? Girls. Yes. All right. Let's move on a little bit. I want to talk about an element that we discussed in our pre-meeting, and it was kind of safety out there. Some unique challenges that women might face in sports participation. And one that immediately came to mind for me was running by myself, and how I feel uneasy sometimes if I'm headed down a darker path or if there's not adequate lighting. I know many women run with safety elements. Anyone here run with pepper spray or some type of, weapon-ish, with style? How do safety concerns add invisible barriers to women's participation? Julie or Kathy? Trying to make eye contact with someone who's going to answer that one.
I think as a runner, you're always thinking about that in the back of your mind. I mean, running is a silent sport, right? Whether you're walking or running or whatever the case is. For myself, I use a thing called Road ID. It's a GPS tracker. It'll set an alarm if I am stopped for more than 10 minutes. And then it'll say, call 911. And sometimes I forget to turn off when I'm done, and then the phone starts going off. But it's a great reminder. This Road ID, my husband can see me. I have my kids that can see me. So, but you always have that in your mind. So I run on, very public trails. I think about my course, whatever the mileage is going to be. I think that for athletes in high school, I think you're more in tune about, you're stronger in your senses. For me, I get in the zone, and that's all I see is me in my zone. But I think technology's provided us with more. I think we're more open to say, I'm going for a run, and this is where I'm going to go, maybe an out and back, maybe it's a longer distance. I think we're more open to telling people, or we have running buddies. We're with running groups. We're with walking buddies. And that says a message, because you're confident in yourself. You're confident in your surroundings, you're confident in your community, that what you're doing is good, it's safe.
Do you think that safety concerns perhaps change the way that women and girls participate in sports compared to men?
I would say even what I'm just thinking about here while we're talking is even emotional safety. For example, I didn't read super in depth about the recent WNBA women having inappropriate objects thrown at them during their game. So that's something you might want to look up to. They're professional athletes, and I feel like their emotional safety wasn't cared for in those moments, and because it continued to happen after more than one game. And I would say just the fact that we have to think about that. You can't just put on your shoes necessarily at any time of the day or in any place and just go out for a run. It affects our emotional well-being and safety to have to think through all of those things. So we're free to do this activity, which is amazing, but there's definitely that limitation that still exists for us.
I think bluntly, do men think about their personal safety before they go out on a run on a trail? Any men want to, I think see a couple of you out there. Do you think about your personal safety? No? Shaking heads, not much? Yeah. Something to think about. Kathy, anything to add?
Just when I was running daily before work at 5:30 in the morning, and I'm not doing that today anymore, but I would always run the same route, and my husband would always warn me, you got to switch that up. And that was before we had the technology like what Julie was talking about. And so that was always in the back of my mind. I thought, I'm pretty strong, I'm pretty fast, I can kick whoever's ASS if I need to, but luckily that never came to be because it would be scary. But that always was in the back of my mind. Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like it's more than just like athletically, just going out in public even can be a struggle. I have a lot of things on my lanyard. People will see it and be like, whoa, she's got a lot going on. But one of the most important things on that lanyard is a little alarm. And I bring it everywhere with me, but the sad reality is that like I have to do that. I don't know any men that carry like around like a little alarm like I do, and a lot of my friends do. So I just feel like that's very like unfair, and it's just a sad reality.
We're going to go through one more topic, and then we're going to open it up to a little Q&A. So if you have any questions, kind of start brainstorming those, and we'll welcome you up to talk with our panel in about 5 to 10 minutes or so. But I did want to end on, I guess, a brighter note, and I think that comes through leadership and mentorship and coaching and having these incredible, folks in our life, women in our life who can build us up or set an example, like Catherine Switzer did. So I want to ask, who made a difference for you? Perhaps was it a coach or a leader who advocated for you, who advocated for equity? Did you have those moments in athletics?
I can speak to that. My coach, Coach Fidenko, had him in 7th, 8th, and then 10th, 11th, 12th. And I guess I grew up in the early 80s at Neenah High School. I feel that their program was very advanced. I mean, I never felt inequity. I was also in running, which wasn't football. Running, we didn't get a lot of, at that time, cross country and track probably didn't get as much booster funding and things like that. But anyway, but he was, and still is today, a mentor and a person that helped shape me. And then my coaches, obviously, in college as well, were very empowering to me. And my parents, I always had to, they were my biggest supporters, so.
I would say for me, my college coach, Deborah Cotterin, some of you might have heard of her. She was a pretty amazing trailblazer at UW Oshkosh, starting their running programs. But also, I want to lift up the men, like Coach Ron Fidenko, who still coaches pole vault, by the way, at Neenah. My dad was very encouraging, and my husband. I was telling Kathy at the beginning, when I first got my first coaching job, I actually coached boys at Fond du Lac High School, and when they called to offer me the job, I was out of state traveling with my dad, and my husband accepted the job without my permission. And I was like, what are you doing? And he said he has encouraged me forever, and been my assistant coach and brought all the babies to all the meets. Literally, when I was nursing them yet, he brought all the kids. I'd hide in a shed. So without the support of the men in our lives, I think it's hard for us to be here. So I want to lift that up.
I feel like I can speak to that too a little bit, just because I have this amazing track coach. He also coaches football, which is a very big, it's just like a very big thing. He has 4 daughters though, so I feel like knows how to help women emotionally, not always just athletically. And he was just always there for us throughout the season. He only coached the girls throwers. And he was just always there for us. Like, he would speak up for us if something wasn't right. So I feel like that's very important. And then my mom and dad obviously really helped me with my athletic career, if I wanted to do anything, they were just like, you go do that. You go do what makes you happy. So I feel like those three people definitely have helped me athletically and even academically.
My daughter, I have two daughters, but my oldest has a shirt that says, "How hard can it be? Boys do it," which I kind of love that sass for her. Yeah. All right. I'm curious too, there are a lot of, I think, athletic supporters in the room with us here today, and maybe some of us are interested in reaching out to our local media and seeing if they're, averaging out boys to girls coverage, or maybe we're thinking about making a donation to our local booster club on behalf of women in sports. What can young women, athletes, parents, coaches, supporters of the Women's Fund do to push for equity in your eyes and in your experiences?
This up too fast, but I think what Lydia said, go to her events, right? Go support the women's events, the girls' events, and bring your friends with you. And definitely, our biggest, the biggest barrier as a coach is the fundraising piece. So anytime people are out fundraising, boys and girls really, supporting that way is great. But just really being at the events and asking how you can get involved and help coach.
Julie, I saw you grab for that mic.
I was going to say the same thing. Go to their events, go to the concession stand, support them, because, even though your kids may not go to the high school anymore, go. The games are great, right? It's entertaining. You're supporting your, local team. Just go and enjoy it.
Grab some popcorn while you're there too. Yeah. What's one piece of advice you would give to the next generation of women in sports? I want to go to each of you for this one. So I'll start with Lydia, actually.
Put me on the spot there, Haley. Okay.
What I do?
I feel like for me, this is just like a tricky question to answer, especially because I'm so young. I haven't really seen a lot. I've only seen experiences, some through myself and just some through others. But, you just have to keep pushing for what you think is right, especially those practice times. Like, hearing that it's not a struggle just at my school, but other schools, and I feel like that's going to be a problem for a while. Just keep pushing for what you want. Keep pushing for what you need. Like, I feel like that's super important.
Well, and Lydia, I'd applaud you too. Softball for the majority of your athletic career, and having the guts to switch a sport after investing so much time in another. That's kind of hard to do in 2025, 2024, 2023. So I applaud you for sticking with it and trying something new as well. Kathy, any advice for young athletes out there?
Well, I definitely feel that to not just agree with everything, ask questions. If something doesn't feel right to you, make sure that you stand up and ask why, or tell me why. And then obviously rallying your friends and family. If there's something that doesn't feel right, rallying them behind you, because getting support in numbers is important, and having a larger voice. So again, I just say speak up. You don't have to agree with everything or say yes to everything, and ask questions, but also have fun. Have fun in the meantime, and just have fun being with your friends.
Kelly, any insight?
I think one of my biggest things that I like to share with my athletes is to learn a little bit of the history, so that we don't take it for granted. And Catherine Switzer's book is amazing. If you have not read it, it's one of my favorites of all time. And just learning some of the things that women before us had to do and what we need to continue to uphold. And also exactly what Kathy said, I'd also like to teach the athletes, this is your body, and not myself as a coach or any other coach, which are mainly men that have never had a body like yours. You're in charge of that, and you need to determine what is best for you. Definitely need to trust in your coaches, but rally supports around you. If something doesn't feel right, your instincts will always lead you in the right direction. So speak up as soon as you can. Find your allies. They're always there for you if you look around.
Julie, any final words?
I would say if you have not read Catherine's book, please do. It's not just about there's so many different messages, but it's not just about running. It's about how you can support somebody. It's about understanding the struggles, maybe from their viewpoint. I was going to say, if I know you're not going to get off your phone, but use it for good. Use it for good, because you do have a voice and you do have the right to ask questions. But know how you can be also supportive to someone else. It's just going to help you too.
All right, thank you. I would love to open up to a little Q&A. Do we have anyone right off the bat who's just been itching to get a question? Excellent. I'm going to come to you. If you want to meet me halfway, you can.
So, at the very beginning, you mentioned this all got started with Title IX. Title IX is important to us. But Title IX is still a law. But then in the ensuing discussion, do you have a Title IX coordinator like it's mandated to have? And can you go to that person? Do you know who they are? Are they doing the research in terms of determining what are the inequities that you might be facing? And are they going to bat for you?
Great question. Kelly, as someone in a school district currently, any thoughts?
As far as I know, at the high school level, we do not. I think at the colleges they do. I think every NCAA is required to have that, but not at the high school level as far as I'm aware.
Great question. Anyone else with a question for our panel, or anyone who'd like to share an experience they've maybe had in women's athletics as well? Oh, I'm here. I'll go here.
Okay, I'm approaching my 80th year, so I graduated from college in 1968. There were no women's sports anywhere on a competitive level. But I grew up with a bunch of brothers and a bunch of male cousins, and I could play anything. But the person I'd like you to think about is Mary Paulson, who was a physical education teacher at Lawrence. We all had to take gym, and she decided to start some women's sports, tennis and basketball. And I was pretty good at tennis because I had all these brothers I played with, and we had a basketball hoop in our driveway. But women's sports were so different. First of all, in basketball, there were 6 women on a team. 2 stationary guards, 2 stationary forwards, and 1 roving of each. But you could only bounce the ball twice. And what they would say, well, we don't want your uteruses to fall out. So...
Did it?
I have 4 daughters.
Yeah, you do.
But Mary arranged for us to play a basketball game against Oshkosh. And these girls came out of the truck with knee pads and stuff. We were these little sorority girls. Okay, let's play. But we played. I was a stationary guard. Needless to say, I wasn't a very good shot. And we didn't win. We lost 36-4. But then we had a tennis. She called on Oshkosh to come and play in a tennis meet with us. But we were only allowed to play doubles. It's the uterus thing again. Not too much running. And we were paired with people, and I was one of the better tennis players, and this other girl at Lawrence was terrific. So we were paired together, but we were seated last because we figured out we're not going to be able to beat them unless we play their worst. And we won.
Hey.
So anyway, I feel like you all are so lucky. I'm not sure you know how many kinds of things we had to do just to be noticed playing sports at all. But I can beat my husband at tennis and ping pong, and he was a big football player and all this stuff, so there are rewards. Anyway, thank you. This is wonderful.
Thank you so much. I had the chance to interview Catherine last week, and one thing that I did say to her is because you did, I could. And I feel that wholeheartedly. We have another Lawrence basketball player here who I think is going to share.
So I need to continue the story. Thank you, Leslie. I was a member of the first varsity women's basketball team at Lawrence, and we played real rules. No three-point shot and no smaller basketball, I think. But we did not have any kind of equality or equity. I don't even know where to start. So we had a part-time coach, And he did what he could to teach us the fundamentals. That was his focus. He taught us fundamentals and he taught us plays. And he said we won because we were smarter, because we could remember the plays. But we each were given a pair of Converse shoes. That's what we played in. They had no arch support. Every year during the season, I would play with shin splints and blood blisters. And now I realize I was injured the whole season, but we didn't have trainers and we didn't have anyone to help with what am I doing wrong and what should I do differently to not have shin splints and not have blood blisters. I just assumed that's the way it was for the whole season. So I'm sure the men had plenty of support, trainers, whatever, whirlpools, I don't even know what else, because we didn't get it. The men had coach buses to take them to away games. We had a 15-passenger van that had holes in the floor, so winter games were not a lot of fun to get to. I could go on and on. It was not equal, but we were pleased to be able to play, as Leslie said. And none of us had played in high school. So just to have the opportunity was really special. And it turns out our AD and our coach, Ron Roberts and Mike Gallus, were instrumental in putting together a women's conference, because obviously you need to have teams to play against. So that was really the birth of not just women's basketball, but women's athletics throughout the state. And we don't think of that. It's a lot easier at the high school level. You almost have a built-in infrastructure, but college level, it didn't exist before that. I do have a question for the panel, and that is, building on what Jackie said, if athletes and or their parents believe that there is a Title IX violation, and here we're talking in terms of access to equal opportunity. It might be equipment, it might be facilities, might be sports fields. Do they know how to lodge a complaint? Because that is a Title IX violation. It involves the law. It's not something you just take to the principal. Would the athletes and their families know?
That's an excellent question, and I don't even know. I feel like they would have to research it themselves. There isn't a person. They would probably start with the athletic director. When we went to the former one about the equipment, we were just told, no, you're basically gaslit, right? We did take this into the consideration. So I'm guessing that's probably the channels it would go through unless you had a legal person come in.
Well, something to consider, I suppose. I think I want to be mindful of all your time, and I know we've got an amazing luncheon coming up, so let's please take a moment and thank our amazing panel for sharing their hearts with us here today. And I thank all of you for joining us in this conversation. There is so much good to come. Work still needs to be done, but I think we've got an incredible level of leadership here in the Fox Cities, and we've come a long way. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and thank you to the Women's Fund for the Fox Valley region as well. For the luncheon.